Good evening, everybody. It's Halloween.
It's Halloween.
Jesus week.
Yes, it is. Are you following Jesus? Yes.
I've seen a lot of stuff criticizing us Christian folk for celebrating this season.
Look, my daughter dressed up as Chucky.
Oh man, she really would offend some people then.
Wow.
So a murderous was it the murderous Chucky or the Rugrats Chucky?
No, the murderous one.
Okay.
She had like the stitches all across her face.
Perfect,
And that was her choice too.
Okay.
So I'm like, oh, I'm so proud.
Yeah.
I'm so proud.
Does she like the movie? Has she seen Child's Play?
Yeah, she does. So yeah, my kid's not the one you want to let your kids play with.
No, apparently not.
Yeah.
No play dates with Peyton.
No.
Did you watch Halloween getting in preparation? I watched Halloween 2 nights ago.
Did you really?
Yeah.
I think in 31 days, I think I've watched every horror movie made.
Did you watch Halloween?
Yeah, I just watched Five Nights at Freddy the other night.
Is that pretty good?
It is awesome.
That looks pretty creepy.
Yeah, my nephew, he told me about it, and I checked it out, and it was really good.
Okay, I'll have to check it. I'm sure Brother Peter's already watched it.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say. I have no, although I told my wife that my homework was to watch The Lost Boys, and she said, "You've not watched The Lost Boys?"
Even she was like,
Karen was like, "What's wrong with you?"
Yeah, she said, like when I was in high school, every girl wanted to watch The Lost Boys. They wanted to be in that movie. And I'm thinking, what am I watching a chick flick or something like that?
That doesn't sound like a good recommendation.
I know.
There.
I mean, she said it's not scary at all.
No,
It's not.
we watched it Friday night.
Okay.
I was like, Brother Peter ain't gonna watch it. I'll just watch it again.
It's got Corey Feldman and Corey Haim in it. It's not scary.
That's what she said.
Yeah,
she remembered their names.
Yeah.
Did she?
Yes.
The Egg Brothers. Oh, the Frog
Brothers.
Yeah.
My kids watched it.
Yeah.
Well.
Now, I mean, I did let, I've said on here before, I may have let my son watch Friday the 13th until he had nightmares. But The Lost Boys really, it's a pretty mild film.
Yeah,
it's just got a lot of that, man, it's got that 80s feel to it.
Yeah.
It's got the, what's the dude playing, y'all are the musicians? It's not a saxophone, is it? That's up there jamming the concert?
I think it is a saxophone.
Yeah, it's got the ripped guy jamming the saxophone.
The juice head, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
instead of shredding on a guitar, it's the sax man.
All right.
Yeah. It is a sax, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Forgot about that.
So have you watched any film in preparation? Like, is there any, what Halloween movie really gets you?
I don't know. I don't know that I've ever watched a Halloween movie. I don't remember.
If you had to think, like if you were like one movie that I have just, if someone's like, I want to know what your go-to film would be in Halloween, but you've had to have seen it, like what pops in your head?
Well, I did see The Exorcist one time.
Nice.
Okay, all right,
I
yeah,
did.
Good pull.
But that's the funny thing about that was my brother and I were house sitting for these.
I already know where this is going.
It's hilarious, and you'd have to know my brother, but he was very susceptible to being impacted by a scary movie.
Yeah.
And so we were in this single wide trailer on a piece of property about 60 miles out of town.
Well, this sounds good. Yeah.
And it was just us, and they had a stack of VHS tapes, and so he said, "Look at this, let's watch this." And so he puts it in, and we finished the movie, and he did not sleep that night. He would not sleep. He was pacing the trailer and looking out the windows and everything. I'm like, dude, go to sleep. I can't sleep. I just can't sleep. And it's like, okay, I don't know what to do with you right now.
That is a creepy movie.
Well, I thought it was creepy.
Leading up to this, I watched The Craft.
Is that the one with
Nev Campbell?
Yes, yeah. I was gonna say the chick from Scream.
Yep.
Yeah. So that
And Vicky Valancourt.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about mac and cheese or something. Apparently not.
That is a true witch film too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we watched Hocus Pocus, so we did
There
that
you
one
go.
there.
That was
So
on
you
the
got the
house
witches,
when
yeah.
we left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you haven't caught it by now, our final Halloween topic in our series is witches and witchcraft.
That's right.
Yep.
Because that is the mother lode from which all other forms of the occult that we've been talking
That's
about,
right.
it flows out of witchcraft.
That's right. And you know what the biggest form of witchcraft is? The tomfoolery you're pulling right now, trying to get away from your dad joke.
Oh, man.
That voodoo won't work on
Yeah.
me.
Well, I was going to say he's no pun intended from which the witchcraft is coming from over there. He was dropping the witches, but hey, hold on. Before you get to hear that dad joke, we need you to hit that like button, hit subscribe.
That's right.
We need you to share it. If you're listening, go over and leave us 5 stars and share it, send it out. Again, we want you to help us out.
Yeah.
Help us help you.
If you're enjoying it, let other people enjoy it as well.
Yeah.
Help the algorithm.
If you hate it, somebody will like it, so you still send it out.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right. What did the 3-legged cat say when he walked into a bar?
I don't know. What
He said, all right, I'm looking for the man that shot my paw.
Okay.
Yeah. Did,
I like it.
What did the what did the termite say when he walked into a bar?
Okay, what?
Is the bartender here?
Is the bartender tender?
It is the bar is the bar tender.
Okay. That one took me a minute. Yeah.
Okay.
That one you got to kind of think a little bit.
Termite.
I'm going to say, I believe this is Stacy's favorite part of the show.
The dad jokes.
Yeah, she texts me every time this comes out, and she's like, oh, my God.
I like the ones sometimes you got to think about.
Yeah. Well, then there's a grasshopper hops into a bar, hops up on the stool, and bartender says, "What can I get you?" And he says, "So I just like a drink." And he said, "Hey, do you know we have a drink named after you?" And he said, "You got a drink named Steve?"
That's good.
So you ain't got? What do you got? Any witched ones?
No, I don't. I don't have any.
No horror.
No, I tried to think of some, but I guess I could have asked my
Do you
AI
make
friend.
Can you build these? Are you good at like honing your own dad jokes?
Sometimes I am.
Oh
Sometimes.
man, that's a power in itself.
Yeah.
right
It
there.
really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have been known to create some of my own dad jokes. Yeah. It's a rare talent.
So we're going into witches tonight.
Yep.
Hey, before we get in there too, I wanted to tell you, and I'm sure y'all have heard the same. This is kind of in that occult witch thing, but I figured this is not. Before we get deep into the Bible, I'll go off into the bushes a little bit.
Okay,
here.
go ahead.
So famous celebrities that sold their soul to the devil, and it's very occult. Most of them really dabble in the occult. And I know one of them we talked about, Jimmy Page, on like maybe the last
that
one.
was last week. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that started with Robert Johnson. I mean, it's a Faustian tale, but I
Yeah.
mean, as far as celebrity goes, the earliest one I can remember is Robert Johnson.
That is the legend that he sold his soul.
Yeah, he went to the crossroads, sold his soul, and
Yep.
he was notoriously a bad guitar player. And
Yeah.
then when he come back,
He could play.
Yeah, he was a 12-string king.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he died at 26, 27.
Something like
I
that.
believe
Like
I believe he was in the 27 Club.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they, which it got kind of crazy when I got to going down the rabbit hole. There was quite a few all the way back to the like 1500s.
Really?
Yeah, like there was some violin player, and again, I'm not even going to begin to know the name because this is like 1500.
Okay.
You know, it'd be like, I'm not even going to try to say the name. But they apparently, it was either the 15 or 1600s, there was this famous violin player that they said could play some of the most difficult tunes on a violin chord. I don't know what you call them on a violin. But they said that even today, people can't hardly play some of the chords on there.
Wow.
And it was like the speculation around was that they had sold their soul to the devil to be able to play. That was some. Of course, you got your, Ozzy Osbourne was on
Right.
the list.
That's right.
Dave Grohl's on that list.
Really?
I bought Dave Grohl's book. It's called Storytellers. And
Yeah.
he just chronicles his life. And he said that he had a seance wanting to embody the spirit of John Bonham from Led Zeppelin.
Why would you want to do that?
I don't know. But the next week, he gets the call to go play for Nirvana. And then next thing you know, he's on the cover of every magazine in the world.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, that
Coincidence? Or I don't know. But
Well, the thing I wish I had dove into, Ozzy was supposedly cursed by a witch. There was
Really?
like a story. My phone or something is picking up feedback. I think it's mine. But Ozzy, because they claimed the crucifix, because he would wear a crucifix on his neck, and one of the speculations was that supposedly him and his band members were cursed by a witch somewhere they were at. So he would wear it. Elvis Presley was actually on the list. There was a lot of
Really?
speculation that he had sold his soul. He was apparently really into the occult, and there they even shared like a thing. I didn't go and search it, but it said Elvis Presley seance, and it was like something he did, I guess, holding a seance.
Wow.
So, but a lot of them were the older, like really back in the day, and they would just kind of, some of them were accused of being witches. Like there was some women that like rose to prominence over their music ability, and yeah, they were like accused of witchcraft.
Bob Dylan is one of them.
He was on the list.
Yeah,
Yes,
Bob Dylan will openly say that he serves the power of the principalities.
Really?
He openly says that in interviews.
Like even after his Christian phase?
I have this apparently was like 5-6 years ago.
Wow.
Oh, is he supposed to be saved now?
He did a whole Christian album.
Really?
Like in the 80s. Yeah.
Okay.
You got to serve somebody?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was that whole Christian project.
Okay. Wow, I feel like the serving Satan and being a Christian probably doesn't go hand in hand very well.
Probably not, you know.
But it's Bob Dylan. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
You know, I stood next to Bob Dylan one time.
Really?
Yeah.
Where at?
At the Minnesota State Fair.
Is he a little guy?
No, actually, he was fairly tall.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just
I was backstage at the big show at the Minnesota State Fair, and it was when Carlos Santana and Bob Dylan were touring together.
okay.
And
Man, what a killer show.
I went up to, I knew the merch guy.
Yeah.
For Carlos Santana. So he says, hey, why don't you come backstage? So it's like, okay. So I went backstage and I got all the way up on the big stage and everything. And I was standing right next to one of the percussion players. And it was like the coolest thing ever. And so I'm watching Carlos do his thing. And then he comes off and he stands right next to me while he takes off all of his stuff. And
Did you talk to him?
No, I did not, because I didn't want to be rude, you know. But he's standing right there, and so I was like, "Wow, that's really cool." I stood next to Carl Santana, and then all of a sudden I turn around and there's Bob Dylan right there. And it's like, "How's it going?"
Yeah. What's up, Bobby?
Yeah.
Oh man, that is wild.
Yeah,
You know, here's a little side note. Santana is responsible for naming my favorite guitar amp.
Really?
The Mesa Boogie.
Oh.
It was a modded Fender amp.
That's true.
And he played it and he said, "Man, that thing really boogies."
Yeah.
And hence Mesa
Yeah,
Boogie.
Mesa Boogie.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's one of my many brushes with fame.
Nice.
That is pretty cool. That's two legends.
I know,
Santana
right
and-
there on
yeah,
the
I
same
mean,
stage.
man.
I just live vicariously through you.
There you go.
I
Yeah.
know, yeah.
right.
Off air, we're like, man, give us all the stories.
Yeah.
Man, you know?
Yeah. We just live through Peter.
We do.
Yeah,
So,
I got to sit in Johnny Carson's chair one time.
didn't you say there was stuff carved into the desk or something in there?
Yeah, I can't tell you what was carved into the desk.
I think you told me.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. And that was all celebrities would sign their names. So there was like Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr. and Don Rickles. You know,
Yeah.
they'd all Sharpies and they scratch things into the surface. And there were cigarette burns everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if they still use his desk.
I don't think so. Because when I went back to actually play the Tonight Show, it was a completely different desk.
Oh, okay.
Wonder what
Man,
happened to that
So-
thing.
It's got to be in a museum or
Gotta
something.
be. I mean, there's no way they could just toss
Yeah,
that.
that's-
thing.
I wonder where that is.
It's got to
Yeah.
be. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was my little thing I wanted to run some of the famous celebrities that sold their souls supposedly. Like I said, Michael Jackson was on the list.
Okay.
He supposedly, even actually Justin Bieber and Jay-Z and Beyonce was some that they all kind of speculated.
Well,
Which Jay-Z and Beyonce are married, so it's like, it might be.
I think we should get into, can you actually sell your soul?
Well, that might take us all night long to figure
Yeah.
that one out. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know that you could sell your soul because, I mean, it's just a surrender thing, isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it can be controlled.
Yes, absolutely.
I think that's where we get it twisted, is like, because even though our world is many shades of gray, it's not just black and white. Eternity is black and white.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
that's true.
like it's
So are you saying like you think because this is interesting because this is what I was thinking because they actually one of the guys in the thing I was researching he was a priest that sold his soul to the devil because he actually was the church did something that offended him. Who would ever think that something like that would happen?
Surely not.
But something happened and he was very offended. This was back again long time ago. And so it said that he actually denounced his faith and like hailed to Satan after this. And then, and apparently from the talk of it, he even like had like a contract that he made.
Wow.
And I think signed it potentially in blood. Like,
oh man.
And
so he didn't just walk away from the faith. He started playing for the other team.
Oh yeah. But it said that he regretted it heavily, and he like, I guess basically repented and destroyed. He said he had another priest with him. He destroyed the contract, and it said that he died immediately. And they were like, that some say that it's because he broke the contract, so he was struck dead.
Well, it honestly, it might have been, though, if he repented and all that stuff, it might have been Jesus just saying, you need to get up here right now. Because I can't trust you with the rest of your life. I mean,
you make too many deals on your own behalf.
Yeah. It's like that guy in the story who jumps off this skyscraper, right? And he's halfway down, and he realizes he's done a dumb thing. This is a wrong thing to do. And so he prays and he says, God, if you're there, please save me. And God says, okay, your soul is saved. I'll see you in a minute.
Yeah. Well, that's what I do wonder. Like, do you think if somebody went that path and was like, I want fame to the point that I'll give anything to the devil, like, and let's say they did that. Let's say they gain fame, and then they start seeing the dark effects, and then they're like, this is a terrible thing, and they repent. I mean, wouldn't God?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Here's an interesting thing, because I watched this little interview today, and it was with a young woman who was a bona fide witch.
Yeah,
and her mother was a witch, and her grandmother,
now, this is Wiccan, right?
No, this is hardcore witchcraft.
Okay, straight up.
Like giant's toes and fingernails of trolls.
This is the whole thing. And so she kind of told her whole story about how she really became a witch at 12 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dang.
She had like a mentor, and she said that this woman was bound and determined. She was like, you're going to be a witch. And so they like, made a ring of salt, and they did this spell thing. I mean, it was like powerful.
Wow.
Yeah. And so she was talking about the sort of gateway to witchery is what they call white magic. And so this was the whole deal, was she was going to be set up to do white magic, and this is to be able to heal people.
She's going to be a good witch.
Yeah, all of your spells and incantations are to help people. Going through relationship struggles. I'll make a spell for you and all this kind of stuff. But she said that doesn't last very long. That it's like almost immediately into black magic.
Really?
Yeah, and it's interesting because this kind of sets up the whole of our conversation, because she says the heart of witchcraft in general is to be able to manipulate people.
Yeah.
That's like the soul. Like we were talking about with some of these other creatures, the idea that you can get power for yourself.
Yep.
That nobody else has.
Yep.
And also, even the word occult means hidden knowledge.
Yep.
Okay.
Hidden knowledge.
Yep. You have something that nobody else has.
Yeah.
And so she learned how to make spells, how to do the rituals. They did sacrifices. They would sacrifice, animals and things like that. Yeah. And they actually, I mean, if she had stayed in it a whole lot longer, they would have sacrificed humans. I mean, they it was like that's the direction it was going.
Did she feel that they were manifesting things?
Absolutely. And she would, somebody she didn't like or that did something bad to her, she would literally cast a spell and something bad would happen to them.
And it would actually happen to them?
Yeah. Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Man.
I mean, it was serious stuff. And
Aleister Crowley made a career out of this.
Yeah. And she was also talking about astral projection. Like she could... she would go into this astral projection mode, and she would be like floating over houses and things like that. She could actually see in the house and see what people were doing and all this kind of stuff. But then there would be some houses that were protected, and they had like a blanket over them. She couldn't see anything.
Was that like Christian's home?
Yeah.
Huh. Really?
Some sort of protection.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was a long and involved story about how she... it wasn't really by chance, but it felt like it was by chance. She was cutting herself because she said that she felt like she had to cut herself, or she had a spirit guide.
Yeah.
It was her demonic mentor. And so the cutting was blood. There was, it was blood involved. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. And so she was literally to the point where the spirit guide and the other demons surrounding her were telling her that she needed to die, that she needed to become the sacrifice herself. So it was all sort of couched in this, so, and just like a couple of months before that, her dad committed suicide. He was all involved in it as well. Wow. He hung himself.
Dang.
Yeah. And so anyway,
did he do it out of sacrifice? Is that what he felt?
Yeah. Yeah. They told him he had to. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, she ended up in a church. She walked into a church, literally. And she said that this pastor came up to her, didn't say a word, put his arms around her and hugged her, and she just like fell apart. And she was just like sobbing, weeping, everything. He had no idea, what was going on. He's like, I just came up to give you a hug.
Might have hugged the wrong person.
Exactly. But anyway, that started her down the path. But she said even then that she ended up, becoming a Christian. She got all cleaned up and everything. She got married. She didn't tell her husband about all this stuff. And one day, the spirit guide approached her husband and asked permission to get to her. And he had no idea what was going on.
Was her husband saved?
Yeah. And so, of course, he said no.
I wonder what this spirit guide looked like.
Honestly, she said that he would manifest in different ways, but mostly as an angel, like the angel of light, like you talked about.
Yeah.
And so you can imagine that conversation. Hey, honey, you'll never guess what happened to me. Some spirit came and asked permission to get to you, and I told him no. Is that okay? Yeah. And so she's had to go through.
That's Frank.
Yeah, exactly.
He's from my past.
I know. So she had to like go through the whole thing and tell him. And,
well, imagine if, and I have no idea how this, like anything played out, but imagine if she seemed like this typical suburban soccer mom when this guy finally meets her and they start dating. She never mentions it's super normal. They get married, and then this demonic presence visits him, and he's like, man, can you imagine? And she's like, well, I used to sacrifice cats and do pentagrams on salt. And
that is about the way it went, because she's from Spain. Yeah. So she talks with a Spanish accent. But she has all the appearance of like a soccer mom. They got 3 kids, very normal suburban existence. So that's exactly how it went down.
That's crazy.
Yeah, how cool is it though that her Christian journey started with the pastor just showing compassion?
I know.
Yeah. How cool is that?
I know. And she said it wasn't a big church; it was a tiny little church, and they were just meeting for worship. They weren't doing anything special.
That's awesome.
But here's the interesting thing: is, and this gets back to the celebrity thing. Okay, so she came clean with all this stuff. They sort of, worked through it. The spirit guide came to him like 2 more times, and
really wanted her back.
Yeah, and she always kind of had this nagging fear that they were going to catch up with her, and find her, and so she realized after talking with another spiritual mentor that she had not been completely delivered and completely freed, and so she kind of looked into it and everything, and this mentor said, "Do you have like any object or something like that would," and she realized that she had a gold coin with this spirit guide's face on it. She said, you need to get rid of that. And she said, because you've signed a contract, there's a legal access to you.
Yeah.
And up until now, your husband is kind of, the stopgap.
Yeah.
But, you need to get completely free. So she tossed that away. They went through, she didn't describe the sort of, prayer session they went through or whatever it was, but she said from that time, nothing.
Wow. Really?
Yep.
Man.
Nothing.
Dang. Wow. That's crazy.
I know.
Wonder what would have happened if her husband had said yes. like, I mean, it would have been able to, because, it's just interesting.
I know.
It's interesting that it had to go through her husband at that point. Yeah.
And she, sort of described it as, man, woman, husband, wife, you're sort of mutual protectors, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so both people would have had to be in agreement that this was okay.
Gotcha.
It's that kind of thing. At least that's the feeling that he got.
Yeah.
And she said something about, when we are, she said, it is a permanent deliverance, but it's also a daily deliverance. I have to get up every morning and I have to, put myself right with God and cover myself in prayer. She said, when we are covered by the Holy Spirit, then it literally in the spirit world throws a blanket of invisibility over us.
Yeah.
And
that makes sense.
That sounds kind of woo-woo, but I'm buying it.
Yeah, it makes sense though.
Yeah.
Well, it's so wild to me to think about these people like actually going into the dark arts and all that stuff. Like, because I don't remember who it was. It may have been one of the violin players that sold their soul, but said that they woke up one night and the devil was on their bed playing the violin.
Oh man, that's creepy.
And that's what I'm like. I don't want to do anything that I'm going to wake up and the devil's in my bedroom.
Yeah, I know what I would do. I would say,
Yes.
yeah, that's what I would do.
Yeah.
I would beat Usain Bolt in 100-yard dash.
Yeah, what you said.
You never saw a 60-year-old preacher move so fast.
I would freak.
I'd be out the window. I'd be out there.
Yeah. Like
I ain't going there.
We have said this, I feel like every Halloween episode we've done here so far.
Yeah.
But it is wild. The like dangers that these people are opening themselves up to.
Well, I think a certain level of covetousness and envy will push people to do crazy things.
Yeah.
I mean, and that you can, thirst for power, for fame, fortune, whatever, love.
Yeah.
Well, but it does come back to the Tower of Babel.
Yeah.
Right? We're looking for something that will give us an edge.
Yep.
That will give us power over our peers without having to submit to God.
Higher. Yep.
Yeah. So that we can own this for ourselves.
That's right.
Yeah. But if something's free, then you're the product.
Yeah. Yep.
That's it. So let's talk a little bit about how the whole idea of a witch started.
Man,
where did this? I mean, we know where, werewolves, vampires. We know about the Nephilim. We know that there's a lot of things that have sort of leaked out of the whole demonic world and all those kinds of things, right?
Yeah.
So the giants messed things up pretty bad. Yeah. The Elohim and all that stuff really did. I mean that's just a crazy thing.
I've tracked it back. This is as far as back as my research went. I tracked it back to 3 civilizations.
All right.
Mesopotamia.
Yep.
Egypt and Canaan.
Yes. And if you want to kind of pull in some others that were in that same era, but maybe a little after, you can go to Greek
And Scandinavian.
Scandinavian.
Yep. Scandinavian was Freya.
And Freya was the god of prophecy and revelation.
Yep.
And this was the first. This is ancient times, so this is the first one we see where we get the idea of flying because she flew across the heavens in her chariot.
Yep. Okay.
So that's kind of the very first inkling about witches flying. Now,
would people seek her out to find out who would win in this battle?
Yes.
Okay.
So there would be no king or ruler or general of an army that would not consult Freya.
Gotcha.
For sure, in that culture.
And the Greeks' witches were beautiful and deadly.
Yes.
They used potions and wands, Harry Potter style. And then the Hebrews, you had Lilith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the difference? Is a succubus a witch?
Boy, I don't know.
Sure.
Why not?
That's the devil.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, the point of all this is these were goddesses.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so these goddesses, and the Greek goddess was Circe, who enchanted the sailors.
Yep.
And she there's one incident where she turned them all into pigs, which kind of makes me think Jesus casting the demons into the pigs.
Yep.
Yeah.
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 Maybe that was a jab at.
Was she the one that would sing them into the rocks?
Yep.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. In
They
fact,
morphed into sirens.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
and in fact, I got some notes on
Man, you
her.
got a lot of notes.
I do. I got a lot.
Dude,
I got a lot.
If me and Peter did the same research, apparently, because when we were
it's a
talking
lot of
off
the
air,
same. Yeah.
we I ended up writing a thesis.
My AI gave me a good bit of notes right here. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So the interesting thing is, out of these goddesses, okay, so these were specifically female figures. The
Yep.
Mesopotamian goddess was Inanna, who is also known as the Queen of Heaven. You can find the Queen of Heaven in Jeremiah.
That's right.
Okay.
It was Jeremiah prophesying, indicting Israel as worshiping the Queen of Heaven, also known as Isis and also known as Asherah.
And that's Egypt and Canaan, respectively.
That's exactly right. So there were these women in all of these cultures called the wise women. Mm-hmm. The wise women actually were connected or would follow these goddesses.
Yeah, they were priestesses.
Exactly, or ministers in some way. And so let's track back with our whole Elohim, sons of God sort of analogy. And you remember in the book of Enoch where it says that they would regularly meet with humanity and teach them things.
Yeah.
Well, this is definitely kind of a connection here because these wise women learned how to use herbs as medicine.
Yep.
They learned how to deliver children. They were midwives.
Okay.
They would provide emotional counselings.
That's right.
Mental counseling, all these different kinds of things. And so they were revered in all of their communities.
Yeah.
Okay, so now the interesting thing is around the 3rd century BC, this is when people started to migrate around the world.
Yeah.
Okay, so you had this influx of people called the Indo-Europeans.
Yep.
And they had their own god system, and they were all male war gods. And so you have these ancient cultures, and the majority of their gods were goddesses, and they were all about healing and nurture and medicine and all these kinds of things. Well, here come the Indo-Europeans. They've got male war gods. And if you look at the writings as they would recount stories and scribes would copy them, you all of a sudden saw the male war gods gain in prominence.
Yep.
And the goddesses were sort of demoted.
Yeah,
a little
slipping
bit.
away.
Yeah. And then here comes Israel.
Yeah.
Israel does not have gods and goddesses. It has one God.
Yeah.
One God. And some of the research I did was very, very skewed, very, very secular. So they'll say things like the whole idea of women, was that women were, they blamed Eve for the fall of mankind. And all of a sudden snakes, which were seen as healing creatures, were now seen as evil creatures. And they just sort of...
the tree of knowledge was forbidden.
That's right. That's right. So we Yahweh followers just mess this all up for everybody. Yeah. We think of the world we could live in, where we could commune with the gods again.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, but that was true because then the Hebrews were the first ones to actually condemn witchcraft.
Okay.
That was coming specifically from Canaan.
Yes, and in all the other countries that they traversed through or even warred with, they labeled it at that time as witchcraft, and so these wise women started to become known as witches.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
now early on, it sounds like the witches initially were good in their practices.
Yes, and it also depends on who you talk to as well.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of occult practices that went along with, because now one thing they don't mention in a secular worldview is that all of these goddesses and gods had to be appeased.
Yeah,
that's right. Sacrifice.
Yeah, there had to be a sacrifice of some kind. And the interesting thing, too, is I did a little bit of a side trip into the origin of Halloween.
Yeah.
And it is
pagan holiday.
Well, it comes from ancient Celtics. Mm-hmm. Okay, so they called it Samhain. It's actually spelled Sanhaim. So we would say Samhain.
Samhain.
But that's not how they pronounced it.
That doesn't sound near as cool.
Samhain or Samhain, either way. And the Celtic calendar, their New Year's Day was November 1st. So hence October 31st.
End of the year.
Yeah. So last day, it was also kind of right around the winter solstice and all that kind of stuff. The big thing in their time was the days were getting shorter. Of course, they're way far north, so the sun would only rise for a couple of hours every day. Mm-hmm. And so on the New Year's Eve, they would get together this whole big, sort of ritualistic celebration praying and sacrificing so that the sun would come back in the spring.
Yeah, don't let this ice kill us.
Yeah, because they weren't sure, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's where the bonfires came from. That's where they would dress up in costumes and they would bring fruits and vegetables and, you know, trick or treat.
Appease the gods and ward off evil spirits.
That's it. And to beckon the sun back in the spring.
Gotcha.
And they would do these rituals and involve their children, involve everybody. And I don't remember what century this was, but there's Pope Gregory, ancient times, you know, the Catholic Church and all this stuff. This was before Protestantism, obviously. Mm-hmm. But the Pope told the missionaries, we're going to co-opt this celebration. And that's when it turned into Hallows Eve.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was not a success. It didn't catch on.
Yeah.
And
because
they were like, it's Jesus weed, people.
Exactly. Don't you know it's a fall festival?
Yes.
But the funny thing was, one of the reasons that it didn't catch on is because the Christian church, which we now know as the Catholic Church, had really turned into a very works-based system.
Yeah.
And so it was all about your rituals and your practices. So they're just trying to replace those rituals with more rituals.
Gotcha.
And get paid on top of it.
Exactly. Yeah. And so it just never made it. And so that's why we're left with this sort of hybrid, weird, sort of goofy Halloween celebration that we don't know what it is.
Yeah.
You know,
we get candy. That's all we know.
Yeah. Is it
so can a Christian celebrate Halloween?
I hope so, because I did.
Yeah.
Me too.
Honestly, there's it's like everything else. You know, everybody says, "Oh, you're celebrating the occult." No, we're not. And honestly, you can make Halloween into what it really ought to be, which is you can be delivered from, protected from. You know, there's salvation in this whole thing.
Yeah.
And you know, so it really can be kind of a time of celebrating redemption rather than.
I feel like we give dates way more purpose than our intention. Whatever our intention is what we're doing, right? You can hit your knees to pray and never speak to God.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For
you know
sure.
what I mean? Like it's about your intentionality behind it. What's your motive?
And honestly, Halloween can mean anything you want Halloween to be. You can make it a celebration of the occult. You can,
Absolutely.
You can make Christmas a celebration of the occult.
But any Thursday can be that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But it can be a time of community, about recognizing the triumph of good over evil. Can be, you know, it's just, you know, it doesn't have to be what we've made it into.
Yeah.
You know,
I've been talking about that a lot recently since we covered genres of movies. And I was like, if you think about it, horror movies make the most sense because there's something evil, good has to prevail. Like rom-coms, you go sleep with 30 guys and then you find your true love.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, comedy movies, you just do a lot of drugs and then you end up having a great time.
Yeah.
You know, it's
horror is the most theological of them all. Yeah.
So by the time the Israelites occupied the land of the Canaanites, okay, so now we're, you know, we got the Ten Commandments, we got, you know, all the laws in Deuteronomy and Exodus and all these kinds of things, and God is very specific. You know, he says you should worship no other God before me.
Yeah,
worship me, and then he says make no graven images, all these different kinds of things, because he's basically trying to insulate them from and you know from all of these other God powers.
Yeah, it's a protection.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so they do condemn witchcraft, like specifically by name. So here's Exodus 22:18.
Yep.
You shall not allow a sorceress to live.
Kill them all.
Kill them all. Inspired Metallica's album. Just kill them all.
That's it.
Well, and so we're talking here, we're talking sorcerers, soothsayers, diviners. Mm-hmm. What's another word?
Soothsayers, diviners, familiar spirits.
Yeah, that's a good one. We'll see some more of that as we pick through some of these.
That one's even too simple for the message. It just says, "Don't let a sorceress live." Like he doesn't have to change it up.
Yeah, it's just right there, right there.
You know what? I wrote down what all those were actually.
Okay, so then we get to Deuteronomy 18. Deuteronomy 18, 10. And it says, there shall not be found among you anyone who makes his son or his daughter pass through the fire. That's a good law. That's a good law.
Yeah.
One who uses divination, one who practices witchcraft, or one who interprets omens, or a sorcerer, or one who casts a spell, or a medium, or a spiritist, or one who calls up the dead.
There's an extensive list.
Did we cover everything?
That's pretty clear, yeah.
I know.
And you know what's really cool about all of these? They're tied back to necromancy.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. He says, for whoever does these things is detestable to the Lord. And because of these detestable things, the Lord your God will drive them out before you.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go.
What would you consider determining omens?
That would be looking for special signs, interpreting the stars, the clouds, the tea leaves,
tarot cards.
Yeah, exactly. Looking for signs.
What about premonition?
Well, that's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
What was going to say? What category could that fall?
Well, Scripture says young men will have visions and old men will have dreams.
Yeah. But what about deja vu?
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting to me too.
I know. What about Vujade? I have that all the time. The feeling that I've never been here before in my life. Yeah,
that happens to me quite a bit.
Yes,
Yeah.
I know.
Well, some people got
Where am
Alzheimer's. I got some timers.
Yeah, I got most of the time.
70%ers.
Yeah.
There's a story in 2 Kings about Elisha. Mm-hmm. And Elisha is having this kind of, go round with Joram, the king Joram. And it says, Joram, king of Israel, and Ahaziah, king of Judah, went out, each in his chariot. They went out to meet Jehu and found him in the property of Naboth the Jezreelite. And it came about when Joram saw Jehu that he said, is it peace, Jehu? And he answers, what peace, so long as the harlotries of your mother Jezebel and her witchcrafts are so many? How about that?
So she was practicing the witchery.
Yeah, and here's the thing.
Jezebel was Phoenician.
Yes.
And that they were known
big into that.
Yeah, they were.
That was
cults.
a big deal.
Yeah,
for sure.
What would were the Amalekites tied to any of these? Because weren't they big practitioners
Absolutely.
of witchcraft?
Amalekites were a part of a sort of umbrella categorization called the Amorites. Anytime you see Amorites in the Old Testament, the Amalekites were part of that.
Okay.
And there would be the Edomites as well.
Yeah.
That was connected with Esau.
Yeah.
And they were hostile toward Israel.
That's what anytime we get to think about this stuff now, I always think of the Amalekites. Just after them being shapeshifters and all that stuff, like that's just immediately.
I know.
Like I just bet their land was crazy.
Well, absolutely.
Like if you went into their territory, man, I can only imagine the crazy things you'd see.
Well, and here's the thing too: is by the time it got to this kind of time period, witchcraft was connected with their ritual worship of their gods. So it included sacrifices and spells and, bringing up the dead and all those kinds of things. But it had this very distinct, there was a big fertility element here.
Yep.
That was not just fertility of the ground, but also fertility of the skies, fertility of humans. And so it really morphed itself into this very sexual thing.
Yeah, they had temple prostitutes.
Yes. But the witches were not only known as spellcasters and sometimes shapeshifters and these, sacrificers of, different things, but they were also, known for these sexual rituals.
Yep.
Being very promiscuous and all these kinds of things. We'll get into some more of that stuff.
With Lilith.
Was this to increase their numbers, though?
Yeah. You're sacrificing
your purity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And your fidelity and everything else that goes with it.
Yeah.
To make sure that lots of babies were born, I guess.
Yeah. Increase their numbers kind of thing. Man.
I guess. But the interesting thing then is as this sort of progressed, okay, so we got the Hebrews coming in, the Israelites, and we see this kind of pop up from time to time. There's a very famous, we talked about this a little bit last week, the Witch of Endor. Mm-hmm. And so we need to go back to the Witch of Endor one more time. Because it's a very interesting story. Because now that we kind of have a backdrop to go by, it's 1 Samuel 28. Saul, it came about in those days, the Philistines gathered their armed camps for war to fight against Israel. Okay, so Samuel was dead, it says, and all Israel had lamented him and buried him in Ramah in his own city. Saul had removed from the land those who were mediums and spiritists.
Mm-hmm.
He apparently regretted doing that because
man, I need them.
Seek them out. Yeah.
Saul saw the camp of the Philistines. He was afraid. His heart trembled greatly. Here's the thing. When Saul inquired of the Lord did not answer him either by dreams or by Urim or by the prophets.
Yep.
Like God's not speaking to this dude.
Yeah.
He said, I got to work around.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so Saul said to his servants, seek for me a woman who is a medium, that I may go to her and inquire of her. And they said, behold, there's a woman who is a medium at Endor. So Saul disguises himself. He goes up to this woman and she says, conjure up for me, please, and bring up for me whom I shall name to you. And the woman says, hey, there's this king. He's thrown us all out.
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to do that. Why are you laying a snare for my life? And Saul vowed to her by the Lord, saying, as the Lord lives, he's swearing by the Lord
Yeah.
that no punishment will come to you.
Yeah, you can do this devil stuff.
I swear by the Lord who is not speaking to me at this moment.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he says, bring up Samuel for me. And so the woman sees Samuel. Samuel shows up. Mm-hmm. She cries out with a loud voice and says, why have you deceived me? You are Saul. And so then she asks Samuel to talk, and the woman says, I see a divine being coming up out of the earth and, old man and all this stuff. And Samuel says, why have you disturbed me by bringing me up? I was having a good nap.
Yeah.
And he talks about the Philistines, and Samuel basically prophesies that he's going to die in battle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the next day.
Yeah, it happens.
Him
the next
and
day.
his son.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing I always think about too, I leave this when we're reading in the message mode here,
Yeah.
because I'm like always curious what it's going to say.
Right.
But that was one of the verses where I'm always kind of like, all right, or one of the stories where it kind of makes me wonder, so did Saul go to heaven? And I know we talked about like he's kind of in that, possibly in that waiting mode.
That's
because
right.
he says you'll join me soon enough, like soon, whatever.
Yeah, and that's the thing about in the Old Testament times. Everybody, no matter if you're righteous or unrighteous, went to Sheol, the place of the dead.
Yep.
You just boom, there you go.
Yeah.
And we get sort of pictures and hints that there were different chambers in Sheol. So one chamber for the rebellious spirits, and then there's one for the unrighteous, one for the righteous, which is Abraham's bosom.
Yeah.
That's the that's our limited human perspective on that.
Yeah.
So he's going to say, I'm down here already. I'll see you in a minute.
Yeah.
That's your joke coming full circle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But here's the interesting thing is because in 1 Samuel 15, this is not Saul's first go-round with witchcraft. Because, once again, he's supposed to utterly destroy the Amalekites, right?
Yep.
We know why he's supposed to utterly destroy the Amalekites, because they were evil people, they were demonic people, they were giants among them, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
So Saul destroys what he wants to destroy and keeps what he thinks is valuable, including the king. And so he comes back and Samuel meets him and says, hey, did you utterly destroy everything? He said, yep. And all of a sudden the sheep start bleating and the horses start neighing and the cattle start mooing. And he said, well, what's that sound I hear then? Oh, that sound,
Yeah.
And he says, well, the people wanted to bring some stuff back. And I told them they could because we're all going to have a sacrifice to the Lord. It's like, no.
Yeah.
No, he says, has the Lord as much delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord? To obey is better than sacrifice, and to heed than the fat of rams. And then he says, for rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same. It's in the same category.
Yeah.
And insubordination is as iniquity and idolatry. And so right then he says, because you've rejected the word of the Lord, he has rejected you from being king. And so what does Saul do? He calls upon the name of the Lord and expects God to answer him. It's like, no, you're out. You're out. So there we see witchcraft just kind of, popping up. We see it also we see it in the New Testament. in Galatians 5.
Yep.
Galatians 5:19, Paul talks about witchcraft. Let's see, Galatians, Ephesians. Yeah, there we go. In verse 19, he says, "Now the deeds of the flesh are evident, which are immorality, impurity, sensuality, idolatry, sorcery, enmity, strife, jealousy, outbursts of anger, disputes, dissensions, factions." He goes on. But he specifically says idolatry, sorcery, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so what we see here is obviously a culture that discourages witches, witchcraft, all this stuff.
Yep.
But
I do get to just highlight this. It is funny, like where the message shines is in these things of like a bunch of descriptions.
The lists and catalogs.
Yeah, it's like repetitive, loveless, cheap sex, a stinking accumulation of mental and emotional garbage, frenzied and joyless crabs for happiness, trinket guides, magic show religion, paranoid loneliness, cutthroat competition, all-consuming yet never satisfied wants, a brutal temper, impotence to love or be loved, divided homes, small-minded, lopsided pursuits, the vicious habit of depersonalizing everyone into a rival, uncontrolled and uncontrollable addictions, ugly parodies of communities. I could go on.
The one that got me.
Insufferable windbag.
Yes. The one that got me is Magic Show Religion.
Magic Show Religion. Yeah.
Chris Angel Monfort.
Yeah.
Do you know that Galatians was the first book of the Bible that Eugene Peterson translated into the Message?
Really? Mm-hmm. Wonder why that one.
Well, because he was actually, he was the pastor of this medium-sized church in Baltimore forever.
Yeah.
For a long, long time.
Yeah, he's become my hero now.
I know. He's mine, too. All these dead people become my heroes after they die. It's like,
and they're all in the room with us.
I know. That's right.
Are y'all consulting mediums right now?
Yeah.
Pat didn't know what he signed up for.
Exactly.
The cat's out of the bag.
I know. But, yeah, he was having this men's Bible study. And they were a bunch of, like dock workers.
Yeah.
And so he would have it during the day. They'd all be on third shift. They come to this Bible study. And he would be, doing preacher Bible study stuff. It's like, here's what this word means. Here's what that word means. And they're all going like,
I don't get it.
Yeah. And he says, thou hast.
Yeah, exactly. And they're going like, and they don't hate it. They're just not, it's like, it's not connecting.
Yeah.
And so he said, I got to do something to make this sort of, come alive. So he went home, and over the next several weeks, every time they would get together, he would translate the passage that they were, and he would do it. He was an expert in Greek and Hebrew. I mean, he was like legit good. So he could write this stuff with authority, and he would put it all in their language.
Insufferable.
Yeah.
That's
Oh
where
yeah,
that
man.
comes from.
I love it. I love it.
That's awesome.
All I can, every time I read one of the lists, I just imagine Clark Griswold doing it.
man.
Like that's what,
Yeah.
I've said that before, but like, I just picture him like, because I wish I could remember the rant that he has, but that is him. It's like, magic show religion, stinking accumulation of mental, emotional garbage. Like,
Hallelujah. Where's the Tylenol?
You can imagine what these dock workers, when they heard that, they're going like,
oh man, yeah.
They're like, I get that.
They're like, I know an insufferable windbag. Man.
my dad was an insufferable windbag.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to fast forward a little bit. So now, we talked about a little bit of the references to witchcraft in the New Testament, and of course, Saul runs into this town, and there's a girl that's a sorcerer, and she can like foretell the future and all this kind of stuff, and she keeps following after him and bothering him. He finally gets upset, and he casts the demon out, and then all the people that were making money off of her come after him.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yeah.
So once again, another, she's basically a witch.
Yeah.
Is kind of the deal. So we can fast forward past biblical times. We're going to get into like the 1400s. Okay. So.
The Black Death.
Yeah. Witchcraft had kind of like gone off the radar a little bit. I mean, it was still kind of, a common thing in certain pagan cultures, but it started kind of coming to prominence in the European countries.
Okay.
And it really did result out of the Black Plague, Black Death.
Specifically France and Germany, I believe.
For sure. And some in England
Right.
At the time as well. So many people were dying that they started attaching this demonic title to it. It's like,
Well, isn't that what we talked about they did with, like, vampires and
Yeah,
everything else?
for sure.
It's like there's got to be a reason why
Yeah.
all these people are dying.
and so they sort of started to look into this things like, where could this demonic presence be coming from?
Yeah.
And so they started, tagging people as witches. It's like, you're the one, there'd be like, somebody would deliver a baby and the baby would die. And they go, oh, there must be demonic presence there. And so they would,
who were the midwives?
yeah, they were kind of like the wise women.
That's right.
Yeah.
They'd take the women, they'd throw them in a lake, and they'd say, if she floats, she's a witch. If she sinks and drowns, she's not a witch.
Yeah.
She's still dead. yeah. If she floats, we'll kill her.
Yeah, if she floats, we burn her at the
Yeah,
stake.
exactly.
If she drowns, my bad.
Yeah,
exactly
at
right.
least she wasn't a witch.
But, if she floated, that means she was very light, and so she could ride on her broom.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's how that worked. So, and there was also this drug floating around at this time.
Oh, Datura.
Yeah, and apparently it was a hallucinogenic, and a lot of people would think they could fly
Yep.
when they took this drug. Yeah. So,
That was Johann Bayer who found that.
okay, all right. So, and actually there was kind of a rise of witchcraft activity during this time as well, and so it's like a perfect storm. There was they would have these things called Witches' Sabbath.
Yep.
And they would
Very secret society.
nocturnal gatherings. They would dance around naked and very promiscuous.
I wrote down various immoral behavior.
Well, and that it was said at these witches' Sabbath that Satan would eventually show up himself, and they would have this giant sort of orgy
Just
activity.
stinking immoral garbage is what it would be.
Look,
exactly right.
it says that it would involve cannibalism, drugs,
Yep.
orgies, all to conjure demons with hopes of the devil himself.
Yeah, man.
That's it. And so, so in 1496, these two German monks wrote this book. It was a witch hunting manual.
Yep.
Here's
Hammer
how you-
against witches.
What, Hammer Against Witches?
Yeah, it's
I
called
gotta get this book.
Malleus Maleficarum. Maleficarum. Yeah. Hammer against witches.
Yeah, it was Jacob Springer and Heinrich Kramer.
That is the coolest name for a
Hammer
book.
Against
Hammer
Witches.
Against Witches.
That could be the title of your next album.
That definitely is. If only I had musical ability, then I would have to do that.
It says believing women were sexually vulnerable, easy prey for Satan.
Yeah, because, that's what's on their mind 24 hours a day, right?
That's it.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's the interesting part of it. The way this is all sort of manifesting itself in this perfect storm of witchery is they basically defined a witch as someone who copulates with demons.
Yep.
Wow.
And
Where
this,
have we heard that before?
and this book was second in popularity only to the Bible.
Exactly.
Dang. So it was, people were like,
Yeah, it was
legit
it was on
trying-
everybody's nightstand
Yeah.
essentially.
And so that basically, the Inquisition had already started. Mm-hmm. Inquisition, they were basically going from town to town, house to house, and they were testing these women for to see if they were witches. And it got way out of hand.
Was
Yeah.
this,
Warts, moles, birthmarks.
Yeah.
now this was long before, because what was the Salem witch trials? That was in like the 1600s, wasn't
Yes.
it?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
But here's the interesting thing is this Inquisition lasted for 200 years.
Yep.
Oh, so that would have fallen into that
Yeah. Yep.
time frame.
And it leaked its way over to the colonies.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they would, if they suspected someone, then they would grab them, they would strip them and inspect their body to see if there was any
Yep.
witch marks.
So if you had a birthmark, you were
Yeah.
doomed?
For sure.
Wow.
Look, you know the expression "you're giving me the third degree"?
Yeah.
That come from this.
Because they would torture them to get a confession. They couldn't execute a witch unless they got a confession.
And there were 3 degrees of torture.
Yeah. And the third one would kill you.
Yep.
Jeez.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I
You
kind of
couldn't look, it said that you could not look at the witch in the eyes because if you had compassion on
Yes.
the witch, that
That
means
was-
she bewitched you.
Yeah. She had a spell on you.
Yep.
Yep.
So I mean, that's the thing. You know, like it was crazy the amount of obviously innocent women that were killed in this.
In one small town, this was not a large town. In one small town, they burned 139 witches in a day.
In a day.
Oh, Würzburg, Germany.
Yep.
Würzburg, Germany.
In Würzburg, Germany, they said that over time there were 600 deaths, including 19 priests and 41 children.
Yeah, and there were no women left in that town.
How did the priests get roped into it?
Don't know. They must have been doing some priest witchery.
Now the priests they were men.
Yes, they were men.
So that's where we get like a warlock. Isn't that just a male witch?
That's what I've always understood.
This is where burning at the stake come about too.
Yeah.
Is because they only believed that reducing a witch to ashes. Would get rid of her.
Ashes, we all fall down.
Yeah.
Okay, so there you go. And what they would also do too is they would torture them to confess, but then they would say, who else do you know who is a witch?
Oh, yeah.
And so they would implicate somebody because they were being tortured.
So like 2 people would turn into 200.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know that some of them would just finally just admit to end the torture.
Well,
that's exactly right.
That's eventually what came to end the witch hunts, is because they had one too far. They suspected the mayor's, or is it the governor of Massachusetts' wife?
Yeah.
And then there's like, wait, we gotta stop.
So it goes to that dies down in Europe.
Yeah.
Because it finally got up to royalty. And it's like, no, we're going to stop this now.
All right, only the peasants are.
Exactly. So then what happened, Pat, in 1692?
Gallows Hill, Massachusetts.
And it was the little village of Salem Village, and it was not very big at all. But there was this pastor, right?
Yep, Samuel Paris.
Yeah,
and his daughter Elizabeth, niece Abigail Williams, and the house slave Tituba.
Yeah,
they were playing a kids game. It's where you took a glass of water, a raw egg, cracked it, put it in there, and you would, like a magic 8 balls, they called it a primitive crystal ball. They would ask it a question. They were asking about who their future husband was going to be. And they saw this image of a coffin. And it said that the girls fell into convulsions.
See, you should not be messing around with them raw eggs.
Yeah. It was an omen. They were reading omens.
Yeah, exactly. So, she falls down. She gets all emotional, falls down in a convulsion. And so does the niece.
Yep.
And then, how long did it take?
2 or 3 days.
Yeah. There was like 9 or 10 of these girls that were going into convulsions. And so they immediately suspected
Tituba.
Yeah. And then they got this homeless woman,
Sarah Good,
and another sort of suspicious woman who was single and never attended church and possibly had an affair with one of her slaves,
Sarah Osborne.
Dude, y'all are really throwing me back to when I was in the Crucible. You know,
I'm telling you,
because these are some of the same names. Like again, I was the drunk constable, but I just remember John. Was there a John? What was the? John Good. Would Sarah have a husband?
Probably.
Was it John Good?
I don't even know.
Well, get this. It led to 200 people being condemned.
In a small village.
200 people, 14 women, 5 men were hanged on Gallows Hill.
Well, didn't they kill Tituba?
Yeah. She was one of the first to go.
Yeah.
And they weren't even allowed a burial. They were left there to hang.
But get this. They started their own little inquisition, and they had tests to see if you were a witch or not. Now, one of them was swimming the witches.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which was dunking them underwater. If they float, obviously they're a witch.
Burn them at the stake.
Yeah, because then they're light enough to fly on their broom. Okay. If they don't come up, then they're not a witch, but they're dead.
My bad. My bad, man.
Okay. But they had these other tests. This was fascinating. They had a witch cake test. Mm-hmm. They would mix together rye meal and the urine of the witch.
That sounds tasty, doesn't it? Yeah.
And they would feed it to a dog. And when the dog ate it, if the suspected witch experienced intense physical pain, she was a witch.
Who came up with this?
I have no idea.
Imagine being the guy, I need a sample.
Yeah, exactly. Come on, man.
Sarah Jessica Parker from Hocus Pocus.
Yeah.
One of her relatives was one of the witches in the Salem witch trials. So we watched Hocus Pocus in preparation for Halloween.
Yeah.
Pat, you said you do the same. I'm on IMDb triviaing it up while I'm watching. And it actually said when she was taking on the role, she just started going down the rabbit hole of witches and stuff.
Yeah.
And learned that like it would be like her 100th time aunt or whatever was like, I think she was the final witch in the witch trials or whatever.
That's amazing.
It's pretty crazy.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
So, so in this, and it spread to 9 other villages around them, this Inquisition thing. And
what year did you say?
1692.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And finally, when they accused the governor's wife of being a witch, that's when they put a stop to it. It's like, we're not having any more trials.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that you ought to go to the wardrobe that the Puritan guys like that would wear. They had the hat, the black hat, the tall, like.
I was telling Peter off air, that's where the witch's hat came from.
Really?
They horned that hat.
Okay.
And that's where it came from.
Yeah.
Well, there's some really cool imagery of those crazy Puritan dudes on the witch hunt. It is pretty it's pretty hardcore looking.
Yeah.
Very metal.
It absolutely is. But the horn is in the Bible is a symbol of power.
That's right.
And so it was like, we have a pilgrim's or a Puritan's hat with extra power.
Yeah.
Well, didn't some of the women finally get to the point where was there some actual witches in this process? Do you think some of them were almost driven to the darkness in this whole happening?
Well, and the thing is, we know that there was sort of witch-like activity going on, and that was at a time when the colonists were intensely superstitious.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very superstitious about everything. And so, once again, it's a perfect little, kind of, all the conditions were right for this to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
back Puritans were the most uptight.
Yeah. If you saw some chicks naked around a fire out in the woods at night, you're like, something's going on over there. Yeah.
Exactly.
The devil's
but
in the mix.
Here's an interesting fact about the Salem witch trials is that all of the ones who there were 2 factions, almost like a family feud.
Yeah.
Power struggle.
Mm-hmm.
All the witches were on that side of the family, and all the people that were making the trials were on this side.
Well, that's convenient.
I know.
Yep.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
And so there was even some talk of that the girls themselves were trying to get attention.
Yep.
Or that they were kind of being manipulated to, to gain some power on our side.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not.
Man.
Either way, that's the work of the devil.
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That does show that even churches can be manipulated by the power of the devil.
For humans.
Yeah.
Humans.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the thing, I always have to wonder, like fundamentalists and legalists, like Puritans were very, very, very legalistic. And, it was like having fun was a sin.
Yeah.
Just anything. And so I always am very suspicious about cultures like that because it just seems like,
you're looking for demons under every rock.
But also, the minute you get a little ray of freedom, you go buck wild.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
it's like the Rumspringa.
That's what I was just thinking.
Exactly. Okay. So I want to spend the last little bit. I found this. This was really, really kind of cool. I want to kind of bridge the ancient to the medieval to modern. Okay. So I found this this list of the 12 most notorious witches.
Okay.
In history / folklore. Like they probably weren't all like real characters, but they were real to the people.
Oh yeah.
And they were okay. So
just like our vampires and everything else. Yeah.
So there was one named Morgan Le Fay, and she was part of King Arthur's sort of realm.
Okay.
And she was said to maybe even be the half sister of King Arthur. That was not verified, but she was a.
Is this Excalibur King Arthur here?
Okay. Yeah, that's the one. And sometimes she would act on his behalf and give him wisdom, and sometimes she would knock him back into place and cause mischief and all that kind of thing. So that's one. Then there was one in the Italian culture, and her name was La Befana. And this is a very interesting story because La Befana was supposed to be a very benevolent sort of witch. She was definitely a supernaturally connected, underworld connected kind of, but she loved children, would give gifts to the children. And it was said that the 3 wise men who were seeking Jesus, the baby Jesus, ended up just sort of wandering through, and they'd stopped at her house.
Huh.
And so they stayed the night there, and they got to talking about their mission, and they said, hey, you're a good person. Why don't you come with us and you can see the baby Jesus? She said, no, I'm too busy with all of my stuff and giving the gifts to the children. And so she didn't go, and they went on. And then it was like a couple months go by, and she regrets that she didn't go. And so she said, I got to hurry up and find them. And so she gets a broom and rides the broom.
Okay.
Yeah. And
she's where that originated?
Uh-huh. And she rode the broom. She never did find the wise men or the baby Jesus.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So I didn't find that in the New Testament when I read through Luke.
Yeah, I forget the witch part in there.
I know.
I found this from the History Channel. It said that the brooms may have roots in pagan fertility ritual in which rural farmers would leap and dance astride poles, pitchforks, or brooms in the light of the full moon to encourage growth of their crops.
That's exactly what I do every night.
Growth of their what?
Crops.
Okay, crops. I just got to get the terminology right there.
Yeah, that's Robin Skelton.
Okay.
Well, that's why we record later, because I got to have time to do my like moon dance.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Get your pitchfork out. Yeah. Absolutely. Got to get those beans coming
That's
in.
right, man.
Yeah. Okay. And then there's a really dark, evil one in the Slavic culture, and her name is Baba Yaga.
Is that where yoga comes from?
Maybe.
The witchcraft of yoga.
Kind of reminds me of Rams, Lambs, Bulls, and Goats.
Yeah.
Baba Yaga. And she was evil, fearsome. She lived in the forest in a hut that was supported by chicken legs.
Nice. I want to meet that architect.
I want to meet the giant
Was
chicken.
that a cockatrice?
Probably.
Was it cockatrice legs?
Yeah,
There you go.
Exactly. So that was, I don't have a whole lot more on her other than she was terrible. The images of her were terrifying.
Did you Google it?
Yes, I did. It was horrible.
Well, now you done piqued my interest too bad.
Yeah. And then, Baba Yaga. Two words. Two words.
Is this a Y-A-G-A?
Yep, it is. You got it. Okay, then in Balinese culture, I don't even know where Balinese is.
Ball something?
Something, yeah. Her name is Rangda, R-A-N-G-D-A.
Yeah, you don't want to stumble upon that in the forest at a dark night.
No. Oh my gosh, it's horrible.
If the Zoom didn't take 20 minutes, I'd zoom in and show you guys. Y'all just need to you need to Google Baba Yaga.
Yeah.
That
Baba Yaga.
is worth the sight. I mean, all
For
these,
sure.
man, that is creepy. Imagine seeing that on Double Bridges Road when you drive on.
No. I think I saw her eyes on my way down. I need that guy with a flashlight out there.
Yeah.
Okay, so Rangda is an actual supernatural being. She's they called her the Queen of Demons.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
She's bad.
Grotesque, terrifying. And then we start getting into Celtic culture, and Kaliak, not Cadillac, Kaliak. And this witch is a shapeshifter.
Okay.
Interesting thing about her is she changes into a different look with each season. Like
is that the seasons of the witch?
It really is, and you can tell this is she was said to control the weather. So like it would get to winter, and she had this long white robe and a white face, and
that would make sense because the Celtics were seasonal. They worship seasons.
And then in the spring, she would turn into this bright, young, fresh-faced woman, and all that kind of stuff. And it was also she was also said to have shaped the land. That she went around dropping boulders everywhere, and that were the mountains and the hills, and all that kind of stuff. So you can kind of see where that one was going. Also, in some of the Slavic cultures, there was one called Kikimora. Kikimora is a mischievous witch. She hides in the dark places in the corners of your house.
Oh, right.
Yeah, if you like the kids would be scared to go into the attic because they might see Kikimora.
Yeah,
and she would play tricks and do all this stuff. She was fairly harmless, but still, you may
Hide
not
your
want to.
keys.
Yeah.
Did you look her up on there? Did she look creepy?
She actually looked kind of cute, like not.
So
cute,
it didn't look
but-
like Baba Yaga in
No,
there.
it's not Baba Yaga.
I don't want to
no.
see Baba Yaga in the corner of my bedroom.
Here's my favorite, though. This is my favorite. This is in English culture. Jenny Greenteeth.
She got green teeth.
Yes.
I hope so with that name.
And they are sharp, like fangs, like
All
razors.
right.
Yeah.
Nice.
Jenny Greenteeth. And she lives in the darkest of stagnant water.
That sounds fitting with the green teeth.
Man. And she was said to, if you got too close to the water, she would pull you in and devour your remains underneath the water. And so here you go again. All the kids, it's like, don't get too close to the water because Jenny Greenteeth will get you.
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing.
What's wrong with you? What's wrong with the English people?
Well, I mean, they do have a lot of water.
It sounds effective.
I know. I mean, I probably would work with me.
Yeah.
Don't get on Dad's nerves, or I'll throw you in.
Throw you in the water.
Yeah, with
Jenny
Jenny.
Greenteeth will get you.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's pretty creepy looking too.
I'll have to look that one up.
But don't all English people have green teeth?
Yes.
That's true. Yeah, I've seen
According
Austin
to Austin
I was going
Powers.
to say, I've seen Austin Powers.
Sorry, English people who are watching us right now. You hit the thumbs up anyway. Okay, just
Yeah.
Yeah, God save the king.
Okay, and then Middle East is Medea.
Okay.
Medea?
Yeah, she went to jail. Medea is the figure in the big epic story, Jason and the Argonauts.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And you got the whole,
It's a good movie.
yeah. And
You've seen it?
I've seen parts of it. We had to watch parts of it in some class I was in, something like that. But here's another one interesting. Have you ever heard of the Bell Witch?
Yes, I was
Yeah.
hoping you would hit on that one.
This made the list.
Because that's local.
It's
Yeah.
Adams, Tennessee.
Adams.
Yeah, I've
Tennessee.
actually been intending to go there.
Yeah.
Because
Hey,
you know me,
I'm
I want to
down.
see it. All right, we just need to, we'll take it. That is a trip
That's
we
a
could
road
do.
trip we could do.
I'm
yeah.
down.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
could do that. The Bell Witch.
Peter might get to do an exorcism or something.
Oh, man.
Exorcise a witch. Wonder, is that possible?
I think it is. Yeah, I think it is. They had to do something similar to that.
Really?
Yeah, it was this witch was haunting their house.
Okay.
It was like a foreboding presence there.
Yeah.
Would move furniture around and all these. It was creepy.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, man, maybe it's just old Uncle Jake, toothless hillbilly out there somewhere. But no, it was the Bell Witch. Anyway, and then there was in Greek culture, Hecate, Hecate, and that's the way they pronounced it.
Get more creative.
But she was the goddess of magic, witchcraft, and the occult who protected the marginalized.
Okay.
So the only time she would get mean is if somebody that was homeless or poor was being abused.
Yeah.
So that was kind of convenient,
So she picked that name on purpose.
I guess.
Yeah, pick on me, see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. And then we see Endor made the list. That Endor was the 12th one. And that was the witch in the Bible. And interesting thing about the witch of Endor, there was some sort of Greek legend in the time, and that Endor was involved somehow in the Odyssey, Odysseus, and that whole thing. But I didn't track down that rabbit trail too far.
I have the book, but I've never read it.
I haven't either.
So
It's supposed to be a good one. I don't know.
Yeah.
so how did we get from the Inquisition
Okay.
to the 20th century
Well,
to the rebirth?
Okay, these folklore characters sort of pulled that forward, and they became kind of ingrained in culture, right? So which they sort of normalized the whole witch thing, kind of de-escalated it into more mythological kind of thing, and then the whole witch thing sort of went dormant. Yeah, like nobody talked about witches unless it was Jenny Greenteeth or something.
Yeah.
And so in 1921. There was a book that was written by Margaret Murray,
Yeah, witch cult in Western Europe.
The Witch Cult in Western Europe, and that began to be studied by a lot of people who were just kind of I'm not religious but I'm spiritual kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of those around these days.
And so it's so interesting because I did just a little thumbnail sketch of Wicca, because Wicca came directly out of that book.
Yep.
But it didn't happen until about 20 years later. So if you talk to a lot of Wiccans, and I've met a good number, they will tell you, oh, well, we go back way before all the religions. You
of course, everybody
ancient
says that.
times. Yeah, it's about 1940.
Yeah, I was going to say,
that's when it
you're not even at the 100 years yet.
I mean, I know that I know that they're kind of they feel spiritually connected to the ancient spirits and all that.
Aren't they like big naturalists?
Nature,
Hairy
yes.
armpits and all that stuff.
A lot of that. Yeah, yeah.
Well, she claimed that that it was the witchcraft was the most dominant religious force. It was a pagan religion that was the most powerful in Europe and in history.
Yeah.
And it sparked a new interest in it. And that's where they called it Wicca. Yeah. And it was craft of the wise, harnessing forces of nature.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. I could never date a Wiccan. I want to be the only hairy one in the relationship.
Yeah, it's a lot of people wearing comfortable shoes, I think is what it is.
They're earthing, man, or grounding, whatever they call it.
But it's very, very interesting because there's kind of I don't know, adjacent relationship between Wiccans and New Age. New Age would not claim to be, they're more into channeling and crystals and astral projection and that kind of thing.
But they're very similar though.
They are, like I say, they're adjacent. They would sort of hold some beliefs in common.
Yeah.
But the Wiccans will actually call themselves witches.
Yep.
They have a hierarchy. They have lords and lordesses. I don't know what you call them. But they have communities.
Do they recognize like Satan in that?
Some of them.
They say they don't. They say, oh, no, that's where we draw the line. We'll leave that to the Satanists, although, they're okay. They're fine. Whatever.
Yeah,
It's just not what we do. They said that they're more into nature.
Mm-hmm.
Their slogan is "Do what you will, but harm none."
Yep. It's very similar to Aleister Crowley's "Do what thou will."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's leads to the Church of Luciferian belief.
But what is their God?
Nature.
Yeah.
Nature.
It's all about nature, and that's where they get all of their. They say that they hold to that they are a part of a legacy of ancient wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, we get back to this word occult, which means special knowledge.
Yeah.
And they will tell you that we cast spells.
Yep.
That we can manipulate situations and people and things like that, but we only do it in a good way.
Yeah, it was described of going from a Newtonian viewpoint where it's just dead matter in the world, to an Einsteinian belief that there's infinite possibilities.
Right.
Huh. Every piece of matter has an infinite possibility in it.
Right.
I just don't buy that they only do good. Darn well if somebody cuts them off in traffic, they're like, hey,
well, we talked earlier.
Get my herbs.
Like the white witchcraft is an entryway, right?
It's a gateway. Yeah. For sure.
And I think we said this off air. I don't remember if we said this off air or on air, but white magic is just as satanic as black magic.
Sure.
For sure.
Somebody might be like, but it's for good. You're still getting that from the devil.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. There's one of two power sources, and it's the ultimate power and it's the counterfeit power.
Yep.
Both are powerful. I would never underestimate the power of Satan and the demonic world. It is intensely powerful, especially when we open ourselves up to it on purpose.
Yeah.
I would even venture to say a lot of the church today acts like white witches. We want to do the right thing, but we don't care who we step on to get to that point.
Let's think about this just for a minute. I'll get theological just for a second. Some of our theology around prayer, intercessory prayer, things like that, especially as it relates to things like the prosperity gospel, the evangelists who, slay people and wave their coat at them and all that
we
kind of
talked
stuff.
about this in James.
Yes, we did. We absolutely did. And James is not playing with them.
He sure ain't. James shut him down. He said, suffer.
Exactly.
He said, suffer in it.
Yeah. And, I don't discount that. Like if you're at one of those meetings and the preacher waves the coat and you go down, I don't doubt that that's real.
Yeah.
But under what premise? That's what I'm talking about. And, sometimes it just feels to me like maybe our prayers are a lot like casting spells, like we really, really want this thing to happen. So we're calling on the power from on high. We're not asking God what God's will is,
Right. We're wanting that.
We give God our wish list.
Yeah. And it's not bad to pray for it. It says, ask whatever you want. I mean, just, it's okay to do that. But before we get to that point, we have to be under and be aligned and surrendered to the will of God.
Yeah. Yeah. Be aligned with God's will.
Yeah. And so sometimes I was raised in a pretty Pentecostal charismatic kind of environment. And there was a lot of talk about, well, you have authority. And so you just claim that. You just, whatever, don't back up, and you just, whatever it is, you just claim that and it's yours, Well, how is that a lot different than,
witchcraft?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think it comes back to motives again. You know what I mean?
Yes.
We talked about the unseen realm so much. Yeah. Our motives can lead us into parts of that unseen realm that we don't intentionally go into.
Yeah.
But we do.
Yeah. And, when you talk about, witchcraft being the combination, the offspring of humanity and the demonic.
Yep.
I mean, that's Genesis 6 all over again.
That's right.
That's where this whole thing started, was the rebellion of the Elohim, the lowercase gods, that then were scattered out through all the earth and were worshipped as God by all of these different cultures.
And then when you go on the other end of that spectrum, you talk about humanity mixing with God. Mm-hmm. You have the person of Jesus.
Yes.
So it's quite that gray area just turned real black and white, didn't it?
Well, and it's almost like that. You've seen these little things online, fixed it for you.
Yeah.
Somebody writes a statement and it's all wrong, and so somebody goes and marks it out and fixes it. It's like God's looking at all the gods mixing with the humans and everything, and
he Grammarly'd it.
Yeah, I fixed it for you.
Yeah,
because this is what a true incarnation looks like.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not the mixing of humans and the demonic, the fallen, the rebellious. It's a mixing of humans and God.
And ain't it awesome too that he used all these other beliefs to show his glory, triumph over it.
Yeah.
It's so amazing I can't rattle off a bunch of them off the top of my head right now, but one of them is Jesus' transfiguration.
Yep.
It was said to be on Mount Hermon, and Mount Hermon was one of the headquarters, the meeting places of the gods and humans. And,
that's right.
And Jesus just says, nope.
Mine now.
Ain't gonna do it.
Ezekiel 4 living creatures, it's the Babylonian astrology.
Same
Jericho,
thing.
we saw that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's God will do that time and time again.
Yeah.
You'll see it over and over in Scripture.
It's very interesting too, because I was watching a couple of my guys' video, Michael
Mike Heiser.
Yeah.
I found some of him young.
Yeah,
it tripped me out.
I've seen
man.
a bunch of those. Yeah, it's really cool. But he's talking about how many times, like in the creation story and the flood narrative, we know that all these other cultures have a flood narrative and they have a creation story, and there's so many things that are similar about it. And it says, even in the Christian creation story and the Christian flood account, it's written poetically,
right.
And it's written in such a way as to not necessarily poke fun, but to say, no, see, that's not the right way. This is the way.
The real way.
Yeah, exactly. And because what you see is not a manipulative God, or not an enslaving God, or God who requires humans to ascend to goodness.
Yeah.
But you see this compassionate God and this creative God and this loving God. And it's like, this is the way God really is.
Speaking of the creation narrative being written poetically, I was talking to some people this weekend. I think we need to do a podcast covering poetic books of the Bible.
Oh, yeah, that'd be awesome.
I really do, because a lot of people don't know that there's poetic books, there's numerology books, there's things like that. I think we need to cover that. It'll help a lot of people out there study.
All right. We there's a lot of angles we can come from on that too. Just exploring the different genres of the Bible.
I think we should.
The apocalyptic genre and the narrative, historical narrative, and wisdom, and all this stuff. It really is helpful when you're it's like how many years did all of us go through? It's like, okay, I need to read my Bible. So it's like, okay, let's see. Moab is my wash pot. Ephraim is my footstool. Whatever it was.
It's like wherever I open it is where God wants me to read today.
No, we got to learn to exegete.
I open mine and it's Numbers, and it's like,
no, God didn't want that.
Go up to Bethel and sin. I know.
Hey, before we wrap up, I told you guys I had a character or an entity, whatever you want to call it, that we did not touch on.
Go ahead.
So I was asked about this one, and I said, I can't believe we didn't talk about him. The Grim Reaper.
Oh, wow.
Oh, death.
So in my AI wisdom here.
Real quick, who do you picture the Grim Reaper as?
Who do I picture it as?
Yeah, I go Bill and Ted in my head.
Okay.
I don't know, man. I'm still kind of like I still go like classic, just skeleton Grim Reaper, but I like some Bill and Ted now.
I like the scythe.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah. So
Grim Reaper's a bass player. According to Bill and Ted.
That's right. That is right. Yeah. So I asked AI, what is the origin of the Grim Reaper?
And?
It says, the concept of the Grim Reaper, cloaked figure who represents death, wields a scythe, has its origins in various historical and culture sources. So ancient Greece and Rome.
Hades.
Yep, the god Hades ruled the underworld and was sometimes depicted with a staff or scepter.
There you go.
In Roman mythology, the equivalent god Pluto was also associated with the afterlife.
Yeah, but they demoted him from a planet.
Well, Then there's medieval during the Black Death swept through. And again, it said it was depictions of death as a skeletal figure carrying a scythe. Well, Christianity says the Christian concept of the angel of death or the angel of the Lord also played a role in shaping the idea of a figure associated with death. So it says it has since become a widely recognized symbol of death in Western culture. So it says its origins are diverse. The image of the Grim Reaper remains a powerful representation of mortality.
Yeah, I go Bill and Ted, and on a good day, I'll go Skeletor from He-Man.
Skeletor.
Yeah. I'll go there.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Probably not enough there to do a full episode on.
No. But would you put any credence to the Grim Reaper? Would it fall in the same category as the vampires?
Me personally, I think it's just a complete fabrication of fiction.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of a way to, just bring a face to,
what's happening.
I mean,
it looks cool.
How can you not connect that with the occult or the demonic?
Yeah.
I mean, you have to.
Yeah.
Because honestly, for Christians, death is like not the worst thing that can happen.
It's the best thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I definitely would put it in the spooky figures kind of category.
Yeah.
But I don't know that the Grim Reaper is somebody that, I think some people might believe this, but that roams around looking to,
And he touches you and you're dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll tell you one that is real.
What?
The Headless Horseman.
Really?
I don't know. I was trying to think of one. I was like, was one that just definitely.
They use a sickle in Revelation.
That's true.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
They sure do.
Yeah.
And we didn't get into mummies either.
No, we did not. And those are real.
They are real.
Oh yeah, but they're not.
Now, whether they get up in Rome
That's
is
what I'm
one thing.
talking about.
If they get up, they're turning into dust.
Yeah, or and they're looking for an ox on the moon. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
It was
really?
Brendan Fraser, the Mummy.
I'm always picturing the Michelin Man when I think of a mummy.
Yeah.
I guess I could he kind of looks like a fat mummy.
Did you watch the remake with Tom Cruise?
No, was it pretty good?
No.
Oh,
not at all.
Well, then I'm not sad I didn't watch it.
Yeah, it's all Tom Cruised up.
Yeah.
I like some Tom Cruise now.
Well, Russell Crowe plays Mr. Hyde, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
In The Mummy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
They were
See,
going
I'm
to
a-
set up the new MonsterVerse.
I'm a Cruise fan, man. Even though he's a weird Scientologist.
Yeah,
But
yes.
Yeah, he's a weird guy.
he is. But he
yeah.
is the action star.
Yeah, but I like me some Top Gun.
Did you see the new one?
I did.
It is awesome.
It was
I
good.
wanted to join the Air Force after I watched it.
Well, he flew for the Navy.
Well, that is true. Yeah, that's true.
All right, everybody. Well, we're going to wrap this up because we're about at our time.
So,
But
what are we going to cover next week?
I don't know.
They will
Me
have to
neither.
tune in
To
Yeah.
find out.
Surprise episode.
Yes.
Same bat
We're going
time,
to get into
same
something.
bat channel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're going to get into something really strange.
And hey, guys, we hope you have a happy Halloween, and we hope you've enjoyed this stuff. That's weird stuff we've talked about because it's just going to get weirder as we
It
go.
absolutely is. I mean, we might start on aliens next week.
We might. I'm
could.
always down to talk some aliens.
Yeah.
I'm good with it.
Yeah,
Boy,
we
you're
might
gonna-
have an alien in studio next week.
Like from another country.
Yep.
All right. Well, you know what to do. Hit all the buttons. Do
Yeah.
all the likes. Leave us a comment, will you?
Yeah, hit
Just-
everything but the thumbs down.
Yeah, just write a comment and say you guys are absolutely full of it. You know,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
anything. Just
I really wish some of you would comment a topic that you'd like for us to talk about.
Yeah.
Like just something. I don't care how crazy it is.
Well,
Yeah.
the thing is, we're so thorough that they can't think of anything else.
I
We've
guess
covered
so.
it all.
I
We
guess
just covered it all.
so.
But you'll be looking forward to our Christmas series. We're going to start that probably. Well, we might just start it in November sometime.
Yeah.
you know?
Yep.
And that'll be a lot of fun because we're gonna bust some myths on that one.
Man,
That's gonna be fun.
I'm all about it.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Guys, catch you next week.
All right. See you.